Okay, so there's basically two different practices or approaches to EFT. One is what I loosely call emergency EFT, and the other one, I call it calm EFT. Now, these are not official names, these are just terms I came up with. So what's the difference between emergency EFT and calm EFT? Emergency EFT is when you engage in EFT, or any practice for that matter, when you're already triggered and in a highly anxious, stressful state. And so what you're trying to do when you're engaging with EFT in this state is you're just trying to bring yourself back towards a baseline, right? A baseline of function. Because you're elevated and now you're applying the technique to get baseline, and then when you get to baseline, you're successful, and then you'll stop the technique most of the time. This is what most people are doing. And when I see, like, on the internet, various forums and different people asking for help or guidance about particular issues, you'll notice that it's largely that they're already in a crisis situation. They're in insomnia, some kind of massive stress, some kind of massive problem, and now they're using or trying to apply EFT, and they're trying to work out which one to do so they can get back to a baseline. So that's the first one. The second one is what I call calm EFT. Calm EFT is when you practice EFT when you're already at a baseline calm state. And the advantage of doing it in this state is that you can actually face the deeper problems or the deeper junk that's in the mind. You can actually go through old memories. You can actually find old triggers. You can contemplate things like your fear of death. Things like this, like the very heavy stuff, which is at some point you will have to deal with it, whether in this lifetime or another one, is that this stuff is deep in the mind. And what most people are doing is they're not doing that. They're not doing calm EFT. And so what most people are doing is they're operating, and then something happens, a crisis, and then they use EFT or whatever practice they're into. It can be anything. And then it brings them back down to baseline, or hopefully brings them back down to baseline. Then they usually stop the technique, go on, and then crisis, and then again, technique. Crisis, and employ the technique. And so when they're actually functioning and they're at the baseline, they're not practicing, right? They're not practicing. And this is the problem. So there's a great quote, I think it comes from the samurai culture. It says, "Sweat in training so you don't bleed in battle." So what this means is that when you're calm, that's actually a really good time to do your practices. It's a really good time to do your training. It's a really good time to clean out your mind and clean out your past and all this nonsense and all this junk out of your system. Because you've got the courage, you've got the clarity, you've got the stability to actually be facing these things. When you're in a crisis experience, when you're in a crisis moment, you're not going to go deep. You're not going to go deep at all. You're not going to go into your past. All you're trying to do is just calm yourself down to a baseline. And so all that stuff is still inside you, so it's only a matter of time before crisis comes, and then you do it again, and then do it again. So that's basically it. These are the two types and two different approaches to EFT. You're either practicing emergency EFT or you're practicing calm EFT. Now you can use both, right? I use emergency EFT, but when I realized actually calm EFT is actually how you get most of the work done, that's when I started doing it more and more. And I would encourage you, if you really want to get the benefits of EFT and anything like meditation, yoga, whatever it is that when the country's at peace, when you're balanced, that's when you do the training. That's when you dive deep. Because then when the crisis comes, you're going to be so much more stable and so much more clear to be able to deal with whatever comes. Because you can guarantee that a crisis, some kind of challenge in life will come. So do the practice when you're stable, not only when you're in a crisis.